Well, hello and welcome, folks. Welcome streaming live from the EMS Leadership Academy studios. My name is Robbie McHugh.
And I'm Lisa Jaritzi, and I am so excited to be kicking off our 5th annual EMS Leadership Summit. I can't believe we've been doing this since 2019. Oh my goodness. And I'm so excited to be here.
Well, folks, we've got a great lineup tonight. We've got our kickoff panel of original speakers, early adopters that are going to be with us here. And we'd love to hear where you're joining in from. I think I already saw some comments coming in. So folks are coming in from Tennessee. So just drop a comment here. If everything sounds good, the audio sounds good, where you're joining in from, we'd love to hear you.
Absolutely. This is, we have registrations from around the world for this summit. So we'd love to hear where you're joining us from. And in a little bit, we're going to have our live panel. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask those questions. And we're here to answer any questions you might have about the summit or about EMS leadership and what just a tremendous showing of speakers who have volunteered their time to present to us for us this year, and our sponsors. I mean, we really want to thank our sponsors who make this possible. So if it's okay, I'm just going to jump right into thanking our sponsors. First of all, Phase International, formerly known as Binderlift, has sponsored again this year. Ninth Brain, another returning sponsor. Highly appreciate them and all they do for EMS. We have Newton 360, our good friend Scott Moore. We have Northwell Health. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed NAMI HP. Sorry. NAMI HP. We have CAMS. We have a special booth for Wayfound, the Beyond Operational Stress, who has a giveaway in their a grand prize drawing in their booth. And our media sponsor is Fire Rescue TV again. So just a shout out.
I was going to say thanks to Martin Grubby for putting us across over, I think, 400 fire and EMS stations live streaming right now with this panel and every daily debrief that kicks off tomorrow. So folks, our summit is going to be over 5 days starting tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. And at 6 p.m. every day, we're going to be bringing on a panel of the day speakers, taking your questions. So we're calling that our daily debrief. And that's what you can look forward to. And that daily debrief will live stream through all these social networks. I think we've got a total following of about 200,000 fire and EMS folks out there that this is simulcasting across. And tonight, we're just honored to have some great speakers here, throwing back to our first EMS Leadership Summit. And we're so happy that they're still with us.
And before we get into our panel and invite them in, we do want to mention there's still time to get your free ticket. This summit, you can attend free. Each day we'll be releasing at 5 or 6 presentations, and they will be available for free ticket holders for up to 24 hours. So they'll have time to watch them all. But if you'd like to upgrade, we do have an all access pass option, and you can get the benefits of an all access pass, which are lifetime access to the 30 plus recordings, as well as NEMSMA approved credits, 24 hours potentially of NEMSMA approved credits. And there'll be MP3s available, so you can listen on the go, as well as, of course, the videos themselves, and then special, special things that the speakers provide too. So it's a great opportunity if you are interested in upgrading. Certainly no obligation to do that. There's, you have access to all the free, all the presentations for free over the next 5 days.
One more other thing I think I do want to just mention here, folks, if you have not heard our the film, EMS documentary film, Honorable But Broken, EMS in Crisis film, we're really honored to have a live stream. It's going to be the first private live stream of that event, and it's going to be at this EMS Leadership Summit. We're going to have 2 opportunities this week for folks to get their tickets. So if you have an all access pass, you're already in. And if you want to just buy a ticket, it's emsleadershipsummit.com/HBB for Honorable But Broken EMS in Crisis. The film's director, Bryony Gilby, will be with us this week. Her 3 kids were involved in EMS, and she was an award-winning investigative reporter and journalist that really took a deep dive into helping the public understand the inner workings of the EMS system. And we're really honored to be live streaming that this week. So get your tickets to that as well. All of this can be found in our virtual exhibitor hall at emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit. And you can click on each one of our booths, support our sponsors. Some are giving, got some free giveaways, downloadables. So we're really excited for folks to see that. But I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, and one more thing I want to say about the documentary is in 2022, we featured them. We had a booth for them, and we featured them, and they spoke at our 2022 summit, and it wasn't even close to being done. So it's fantastic to be able to come full circle and be able to, show that live twice during our summit. We really want to thank them for honoring us with that ability to live stream it for people. So very exciting.
And they recently, before it was released, they had Sarah Jessica Parker do the narration. So it's really neat to have an A-lister out there help really elevate our industry and spread the word.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's bring on some of our guests. I mean, a little bit later, we can go through the exhibit hall and kind of show that off a little bit. But I think it'd be fun to bring in some of our guests that we have with us tonight. It's so cool because, some of these folks have been with us since the beginning in 2019. So we can talk about how are things changing and how are things sort of staying the same and what we can look forward to over the next 5 days.
Absolutely. Let's first bring in Dr. David Daniels. David, welcome. Great to see you.
Howdy.
Hey,
How you doing?
David.
Hello. Family reunion time.
And
You weren't a doctor when we started in 2019.
Oh, well, sometimes people wander off into the underbrush. So
Well, congratulations again on
Thank-
that.
thank you.
I know we've spoken with you many times since, but it's a big deal. So
Good.
congratulations and
Thank
thanks for
thank you.
joining us again.
Glad to be here.
One of our OGs
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
the very first.
That's right.
I always love your story about how you're like, this sounds interesting. I'm in.
Yeah. That's right.
and so many people were saying, I don't know about this virtual thing. I
Yeah,
really
that's
like to
not-
meet people in person.
Yeah, that's never going to go anywhere, until the next year.
Right.
Till the next year.
Right. We were pre-pandemic ready because
Absolutely.
I have to give credit to Robbie because he's the one who it was his vision, and I was like, all right, I'm in. If you're in, I'm in. And that first year we had we were like, let's have 250, let's have 250 people, let's have that. Like we were really hoping for that, and we had 1,500 on day one. So we knew we were onto something, that's for sure.
Yeah, you were, and I think you all are almost underplaying it a bit how important the decision was to even have an event like this, to have it in a virtual kind of environment. Again, when people thought that, what's that about? That's not going to go anywhere. And again, lo and behold, within a year, it became basically the gold standard of how people did things like this because many of us were sitting at home. And now, it is much more common. This is the way lots of things are done, particularly for folks who are in, industries like EMS. You aren't going to become a millionaire doing EMS. and a lot of folks who really want and need this type of opportunity to get this information and training and credits and that gives them an opportunity to get it. So you're doing the Lord's work. So very good. Thanks.
Well, David, we appreciate you and your passion for psychological safety, both physical safety and psychological safety. I mean, you are on the board of the National Safety Council, and you have been inducted into several different awards and honorees for your work in safety. And I feel like you're giving a voice to people for the often overlooked element of organizations, which is the psychological safety component, that people feeling safe and not just being physically safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, just actually just completed that tour on the NSC board, and we, had a lot of conversation, particularly as we were kind of coming through the pandemic, about how people are feeling, not just physically but emotionally. And EMS is certainly a perfect place to have that conversation, because you have folks riding around in boxes, sitting on corners, trying to decide where they're going to get a break to go to the bathroom and to get to get their lunch, and another call comes in. And I honestly believe that it's an industry that's really in need of some analysis of even that process. Folks can only do so much, and I remember those days riding actually the busiest day I ever spent doing response was not on a fire truck. It was on one of our BLS transports when I was with the Seattle Fire Department. And it's difficult. And I'm sure it's much more difficult now than it was then, because this has been a couple of decades ago. And there are a lot of folks out there giving their absolute best physically, but emotionally, they're just burned out and they need a break and need an opportunity to retool. And again, these kinds of conversations can help, because people can do it. We just need to tell them what it's really about, not sugarcoat it for them, and then create systems so people can recharge and have a day off when they need to have a day off, and that type of thing.
Yeah,
that's great.
absolutely.
Folks, we're going to keep bringing, David, thank you for being here. We're going to bring in another of our speakers to celebrate with us in the kickoff. And we've got Chris Caballero. Chris, welcome back.
Chris.
Hey, you got to tell me you're going to do it. I was going to get up. No, I'm so excited to be here, Dr. Daniels. I'm so excited to listen to your class tomorrow. Year 5, are you kidding me? I mean, This is just great. And I'm looking at the murderer's row of speakers that you guys have coming up, which is just amazing. John Washko is a great speaker. Scott Moore, I mean, you can't say enough about him. Doc, I've seen you speak before, and I'm looking forward to your class. But just the name after name after name, Chris Caballero, who is that guy? He's probably a throwdown, right? But it's all about leadership, and this is the premier event of the year, not only for EMS leaders, but really any leaders that want to jump in this and have the opportunity to hear from very experienced speakers that have great knowledge, that have great skill, that could really kind of take us to the next level. And, leadership, as we've talked about before, personal and professional development is really all about the journey that's on a continual process that we make. John Maxwell tells us in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership that it's the law of process. Leadership doesn't develop in a day, but it develops daily. And it's a constant journey. And you guys coming back for year 5, we get to add this to our personal and professional development journey, and we just continue along on the pace to grow. And I'm just excited to be here again. I'm going to have to take a breath before I pass out. I mean, just all this energy is it's just making me lightheaded. Doc, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, well, this is why you're here, man. Yeah. Bringing the passion and bringing the fire. Yes, sir.
Chris, well said. And Lisa and I often talk about that. Leadership is not a destination or just a title. I mean, It can happen at any level. And here we all are on this learning journey from novice to mastery, right? Nobody's preaching perfection. At least we're not preaching perfection from this stage by no means. And we are acknowledging that, leadership can really happen at any level. And it's like somebody said, climbing a mountain with no top, right?
Yes.
You better enjoy the journey.
Vince Lombardi has a great quote that says, "Gentlemen, we're gonna go after perfection." I'll paraphrase it. We're gonna go after perfection, knowing we won't reach it, but hopefully we can capture excellence, right? And I think that one of the big challenges that we talk about when it comes to leadership and leadership development is that we don't have our the line of sight as to what that really looks like. Right. When we talk about development, what is your plan to get to the next level? You talked about novice to skill mastery. And one of the things that I do when I set up leadership development programs for EMS agencies is we really build them on the job description, right? Because in the job description, you have all these skills that you need to do: communication, conflict resolution, scheduling. And, these are all skills. And you need to be able to look at those skills inside your job description. You need to be able to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being least, 10 being the best. And then from there, if you're a 5 in communication, how do you get to a 10?
Yes.
And then once you attain skill mastery in your job, now look at the job that you want,
Right.
and now start to develop those skills. So this way, when those jobs come available, you've put yourself in a position to be prepared. But we need this plan, Robbie. We need this plan, Lisa, so we can put ourselves on the path of continual learning, increasing our knowledge, increasing our skill, increasing our ability, because the people that we're honored that follow us, that's what they deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking about the analogy about the mountain with no top. The other thing that goes on when people climb mountains is the air gets thinner. The higher you go up, the air gets thinner. And I've not climbed a mountain. I have not. I'm not going to say that I ever will because of some of the hazards and risk associated with it. But I can imagine it would be very important. At least I've heard this, very important to have way stops along the way and ways to support people as they get into those spots. And I think sometimes that's what's missing, is that we promote people. We create this job description. We say, oh, you can do all this stuff. But then once you get there, there's just more work. There's just more expectation. There's just more pressure, but there isn't support. There aren't, guys like Chris I can call and say, hey, man, I'm going through this thing, or, what, do you have any thoughts about this idea? There aren't these forums for people to be able to get together. And again, I do believe this is one of those opportunities where folks can sit in a rare kind of non-threatening. I can sit in my house with my Zoom suit on, my pajamas and my T-shirt, whatever. But I can sit. I can just sit and pace my way through. And particularly if I get that lifetime, that lifetime license, I can just watch this a couple of times and kind of let it ruminate for me. It's not like a classroom where I have to take a test and there's a lot of pressure, but the opportunity to kind of soak it in, kind of ruminate over it, and then feel supported. Because I can tell you that some of the toughest times I had as a leader were the higher I got, where there are fewer people doing it and you have less people to talk to. So, but this continuous journey is really, really, really important.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things, sorry, Lisa, cut you off, but one of the things that we need to remember here too is that you have to get outside your comfort zone to do this as well, right? So growing happens when you get outside the comfort zone. And as you do that, you'll find yourself to be, drooling on yourself as you try to figure and navigate where you are, right? Experience comes from mistakes. Mistakes come from lack of experience. And you've got to be able now to figure out what that looks like, in the sense of, as you say, you're going up the mountain and there's less and less people. But it doesn't mean you can't turn around and yell back, hey, Chris, what is this? What am I seeing? And we don't do that enough, Doc. And the reason for that is that EMS is a very egotistical business. I don't know if you guys know that, if I'm breaking news here.
We've heard.
But it's the egotism that keeps us from asking the question why, because we don't want to look like we don't know what we're talking about in front of our peers. If you know everything there is to know about EMS, raise your hand. Well, it's the same thing about leadership. Okay. If you know everything there is to know about leadership, raise your hand. And you need to be able to have a network of people. And I just did it the other day. I called Gary Ludwig down there in his home, and I said, Gary, I forgot how to do this. Can you please remind me? And he goes, it's easy, blah, 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 blah. But that's having your network to help you out.
That's right.
Also, one of the things that was really fascinating to me 10 or 12 years ago when Robbie and I first met was, I was working in all these organizations doing leadership training. And when I started working with Robbie in EMS and we started to expand to other organizations, was the just assumption that people knew how to lead. Like, you were great clinically. There were no courses. Robbie used to say all the time, here's your paramedic certificate or EMT certificate. Good luck running your organization. And it was like, what is happening?
Right.
There's no leadership. What's happening? And then we would approach organizations about leadership training, and it'd be like, leadership, like, who needs that? Like, that's all soft skills. We know how to. And it was like, and I remember talking to Robbie and being like, what is happening? Because in all these other places, it was just done, the places I was used to working. So it's been quite a journey for us over the last, well, we're celebrating 10 years as EMS Leadership Academy officially this year, but it's been fascinating to just watch the evolution because more and more people are interested. And here we have, 5 years of the summit proving that people are in fact interested. I know we have another guest to bring in. So
and along those notes, Lisa, I remember, and I'll be the first to admit this, I, at a very young age, in a leadership role, thrust into the leadership role, I thought the phrase capacity building, I didn't even know. I'm like, well, that's not for us. There would be grants coming out for capacity building. I'm like, oh, yeah, but that doesn't apply to us. I had no idea. It's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I just vividly remember like that experience of not even thinking we could apply for something like that. So
Very cool.
Things you learn. But I do want to bring in our another speaker that has been with us since early on, Chris Mattina. Chris, welcome.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Robbie and Lisa. Thank you guys so much for having me. I've been watching David and Chris especially bring the energy up. I'm really excited for this 5th year. It's crazy because I remember the first one we were at, and it just started very small. I remember seeing Chris and Dave's talk then. I see him every year now. And you said some really good things, Chris. We got egos, but, a lot of us got into this and figured we kind of knew leadership, but now we're really learning what we didn't know. And I love it. So thank you, Rob and Lisa, for having me on, but more importantly, for putting on the event, the EMS Leadership Summit. I really can't stress how important leadership training like this is, and the accessibility to get this kind of knowledge, like Dr. Daniels mentioned, from all these great speakers from all over. It's phenomenal, the conference that you guys have been able to put together and pull together.
Thank you, Chris. I mean, it has been, we counted the other day when we were putting agendas together and counting the number of sessions, and this marks over 200 sessions recorded in the last 5 years, not 50.
Wow.
The last couple of years.
5 years.
The last 5 years, over 200 sessions. And we've been honored by the level of speakers, everybody that's on this live stream right now. Dr. Nadine Levick, Wendy Lond. We've got all these incredible speakers that just pour their hearts into what they put together and the presentations they bring, and they bring the energy, and it's so exciting. Our goal was to try to democratize this information. We wanted to not have just leadership conferences that were maybe very expensive to get to, and people couldn't afford to get there because of travel expenses, and we wanted to make this more accessible for people, because just like Chris said earlier, you get promoted into that leadership position because maybe you're the best paramedic, and what tools can you give people before you give them that gold badge, before they do some hard to repair damage, before they stick their foot in their mouth and then realize it probably wasn't the best thing to say. So we've got so many sessions this year going on that I feel like are going to be some really key discussion points. Chris Cebollero talking about self-mastery, right?
Yeah.
And Chris, maybe you want to just give us a rundown of what people can expect when they watch your session.
Yeah, one of the things I do want to tag on a little bit too is when you said something, and I want to change the paradigm a little bit before we talk about that, is you said, let me give you this question. Whose responsibility is it for you to prepare to be a leader? Right. And when we think about the word leadership is a verb. It's not a noun. Right. So regardless of the position that you follow or that you're in, you could be a leader if you can influence people. But if you know you want to be a supervisor one day, if you want to be what are you doing right now to get ready for that? So I want to challenge you now to use this platform and share it with the people who may not be in EMS. I'm going to talk about self-mastery, and there are just some great classes that are going to go on. But so self-mastery really is the fact of we are a slave to our own thoughts. We are a slave to our own emotions. We have emotions and they create feelings. And then those feelings create behaviors. And then those behaviors create habits. And then once that gets into the routine, that's where our subconscious mind now starts to cause us to fail in what we're doing. When we think about this, that negative self-talk that we have in our head, Chris, what makes you think you can be successful? Chris, what makes you think you can be rich? Chris, what makes you think that you can quit smoking? And it's that self-sabotage that really kills our success. But you have to remember this. We're saying what we've programmed our subconscious mind to tell us to say. Every time that we're negative, our conscious mind can accept, reject, or neglect any idea we give it. I'm going to tell you that the sky is blue, and you're going to turn around and say, Chris, that's crazy. But whatever you believe to be true, your subconscious mind will imprint as truth. I'm not a good parent. I'm never going to quit smoking. I'm never going to lose weight. I'm just a horrible spouse, whatever it is. So we have to be able now to challenge our thoughts. We have to be able to make the determination, is it valid or is it just conjecture? And then we've got to be able to challenge that with the positive thoughts that's going to reprogram our subconscious mind and keep us really on the path of being successful. I got to tell you, one of the things that I've been doing over the past 19 days is I'm off raw sugar. No soda, no cake, no nothing. And then after 19 days, I'm going to move into carbohydrates, and I'm going to cut those out so I can get myself in a little bit better shape. But it's the constant struggle in my mind to say, man, that Pepsi looks good. Oh my gosh, did they have to put cream on that apple pie that I'm sitting in this event and I'm passing up on this, right? So now when we think about becoming the best version of yourself, that's where that we have to be able to reprogram our subconscious mind and develop self-mastery. Because once we're able to master our emotions and our feelings and where we're heading, we are going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, that's so great. And, it's so important to notice that, if you're aware of your thoughts, that tells you that you're not your thoughts, right? And so many people, we identify with the thoughts we have. But what you're really demonstrating is if you have the ability to observe your thoughts, and every human being on the planet has that ability, then there's that little bit of space, and that's all you need to be able to see, oh, my thoughts come and go. I don't have to believe everything I think, right? I don't have to live everything I think. And I think that's such an important first step for anyone, leadership or otherwise, to be able to slow down enough to just listen to, what am I saying? Is that really what I want to be saying? Is that really what I want to be living? So,
but let me just give you one more point, and I'll be quiet for the rest of the show. Is that
anybody buying that?
I doubt it, but we love it, Chris.
Try to keep track of how many times a day you're negative to yourself. Then try to keep track of how much negativity is around you and the people who are, not that they're being negative now, but how much they're saying, well, if we get this done. No, it's never if, it's when we get it done, right? So just pay attention to that, reflect on that for a minute, and then you can kind of see how you can challenge those.
And Chris, you point to the labels that we place on ourselves. And it also happens because we end up placing those on other people. How many other people have we put in a box and labeled them difficult, lazy? Like that doesn't exist in reality. Yet we attach ourselves to labels about ourselves that are disempowering. And then we label other people so they really can't show up any other way. And once people get more self-awareness, they can then use that habit to have more self-control in their own believing they're thinking or not.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, you mentioned about, how very few people kind of realize, if you want to get into leadership, for example, if you're preparing for that, like start preparing now for the future. And, Dr. Daniels, you mentioned that how this can be for anybody, mastery for Chris, like it's not just for EMS, but I love some of the conversations as we've looked at where the conference started back in 2019 to where you guys are now with the EMS leadership and the 5th one that's going, and it's awesome. We're seeing the conversation evolve as well because, what we didn't know about leadership, and when we get these leadership roles, it's, we can't be effective leaders. It takes time to get spun up. It's a lot of investment. Some fail, some struggle. But we also look at, just some of the things you just talked about, emotional intelligence, understanding our feelings and giving those a name and recognizing those. So we can go home as providers, first responders, and not only be a better clinician, a better first responder, but also be a better parent, better dad, a better friend. And some of those things that we do, and some of the discussions we're having in this conference, like for myself, I'm now talking about mental health leadership, how leaders can take it maybe to another level when they're talking about mental health and supporting some of these things like you just talked about, Chris. And, I applaud you for, taking those opportunities to really grow yourself, recognizing what is around you, negativity. What are some of those things, substances that might be detracting from you being your peak performance? We really need to start looking at EMS leaders as being the next kind of athletes. And you don't see athletes going out there and binge drinking all night at conferences, which is another reason why I love this conference, is because it allows some really good self-help at the same time. We take away some of those things. But, seeing this evolve over the years and the conversations that we're having, the new conversations that I feel like are very innovative when you look at this, the EMS Leadership Summit compared to some of the other conferences that are out there. And I love it. It's empowering leaders with what they don't know and then giving them the tools on how to get there. And if you're not practicing, if you haven't set a goal for yourself professionally once a quarter, once a year, you're really not growing and you're not keeping up. And so, once again, why I love EMS Leadership Summit so much. And I love coming back every year to present.
Yeah, if I can, the other thing I'm thinking about is, as the Chris and Chris show continues, is the opportunity to connect with people that you wouldn't otherwise. Because to both your points, these negative thoughts and feelings and emotions and habits that people develop get imprinted in the policies and the cultures and the ways that the organizations function. And it doesn't happen. I'm not suggesting at all that the folks who set up, the ABC ambulance, company years ago were bad people, but they had their own struggles. They had their own challenges. They had, the folks who came to the XYZ fire department who was doing EMS, they had their own issues and when I hear people talk about, we're kind of standing on the shoulders and, sometimes that's kind of the excuse to do what the folks that they did last year, to keep doing the same thing because they're such great people. You're right, they are, but we all have our limits. We all have our limits. And if we stay in that same circle, no matter how much we may want to get better, we probably won't, because the system doesn't have the capacity to help us be better. Some of that, and we're talking about leadership, is on me to have a desire to want to be a little bit more than this group that I'm in. And again, not to say that they're bad people or the system's bad, but somebody's got to be on the inside looking outside going, how could we do this better? How can we challenge what we're doing, even if it's working great? How can we get better at it? And summits of this nature give people the opportunity to see outside themselves, to see outside their current organization. And again, to be able to do it, there was a time when I went to training on my own every month because the organization I was in said they didn't have the budget to do it. So I did it on my own. And again, this is an opportunity for people. You may not have that, that really, really long checkbook, but you got the opportunity to invest in yourself and to do that. And really, nobody can stop you. Nobody can really say no. They can't say you can't go. They won't be able to take, well, we won't be able to get a replacement for you for that particular shift. You can do it for yourself and invest in yourself. That's the great opportunity that the summit gives people, is I can invest in me. The cost is really reasonable. I got to go nowhere. And I can see people I'd likely never be able to see.
Yeah, I know we have another guest to bring in, but I just want to piggyback on that, if it's okay. And that is two things I've been noticing in particular this year. We ask our free ticket holder, free pass folks, when they register, just send us an email and just let us know what are they dealing with. And one of the biggest themes I've seen this year, I think more than any other, is that people wanting leadership training for themselves. That rather than coming and saying, I want to know how to help my people do XYZ, like I want to get people to do what I need them to do, which is a fine thing. But more than ever, I've noticed people emailing and saying, I want to be a better leader. I want to prepare to be a leader. And I'm excited that I can access these presenters who I wouldn't otherwise be able to access, and for free, right? And then the second thing that I think is really cool is the number of people who are saying they're looking for mentors. And I think the possibility of these presentations is people can connect to people and see, oh, I really like Chris's work, or I really like Dr. Daniel's work. I really like Lisa, and sign up for your newsletters or sign up for your courses. And that's a way to get mentored, virtually, or not necessarily the traditional way of thinking of mentorship, but it's about being exposed to a lot of different ideas, like you were just saying, not just in your own little circle, but like exposure to, we have speakers from around the world, and we're privileged to offer that to people. So anyway, I just wanted to drop that in.
No, and it's great that you're able to get these people together. And what I like so much about the Leadership Summit is available of offline learning, right? So if I can't make it, my schedule flexes. What I like about the program is I use it as part of my routine as a leader myself. I'm always learning. I'm always a student first. I never say I've arrived, because that's the most dangerous thing we could say, I think, in EMS. But I try to listen to one of these, talks from last year, the year before. I listen to these amazing speakers at least once a week. I just play it in my office. I have it going background, and you pick up a little bit more every time. And it might be applicable to what I have going on in my own professional or personal life at that moment. And I'm able to take that resource and really apply it. And I love that there's so much of it, right? So many great talks, so much content that you can come back at, and you can search and you can find exactly what you're kind of looking to grow, whatever that goal is for that month, that week, that day. There's just so much phenomenal content there, and words of wisdom and knowledge that it really has, like, listening to these speakers every year has grown me professionally and personally as a leader, and someone that I can take that and give that on to other mentors, other people that are trying to grow. Because guess where I started? I started at the bottom, right? And I'm still growing, and I'm always going to grow. But having these consistent resources year after year, and then you can make them, you're available. You could grab them as little or as much as you want at any point in time. So it really is thankful. And I'm really thankful for both you and Lisa, Robbie, for putting this event on, having me on and having me back. It's been a pleasure to watch you both grow over the last 5 years. I wish you guys such a successful conference, but I do need to kind of roll off. And I just appreciate your time, your energy, and all you do for the leaders, because you're right, Chris, their tools are just not there. People want them. How do they find them? This is why I tell everybody, if you're looking for leadership, and it's why we partnered, because as Mind the Frontline's founder and president, I see the value in having good leadership training as part of your self-care, as part of your mental health and wellness. And so that's why I really enjoy and feel fulfilled by doing these things. And congratulations, and have a wonderful and successful conference, everybody.
Chris, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the work you're doing with Mind the Frontline. And folks, if you haven't heard, mindthefrontline.org for information on mental health resources in your local area and nationally. So Chris, anything else you'd like to add about your talk that people are going to be able to watch this week?
Saturday.
Yeah, just real quick. Yeah, so it is Saturday, and I do hope you guys can make it. If not, once again, you have the opportunity to watch this offline. But we're really going to be diving in on some of the new innovative approaches on how you can implement good peer support, good mental health and wellness resources, really thinking outside the box, borrowing from other industries. If you're a leader, you're in that position, sometimes that role can be difficult when you don't have those resources set up already internally. Or if you do, once again, how can you improve them? How can you make these things better? And so I talk a little bit about that. I provide the research, obviously, that supports my talk on how we can do things, what little things we can do, but just some examples like normalizing conversation. Well, how can we do that? Well, as a leader, you set the bar within your organization. So being able to have these resources, being able to have these normal conversations, and more importantly, what to say versus what not to say. So I give some great examples. I hope you guys, I'm not going to give too much away, so you guys have to come watch me give my talk, and I really look forward to doing the kickoff, or not the kickoff, but the debrief Saturday evening. So if you have any questions, please join on, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. So thank you again, both Robbie and Lisa.
Thanks for being here, Chris. We'll see you Saturday.
Absolutely. You guys have a good one, Chris and Dave. Always good to see you.
Take care, brother.
Always great to have Chris on board. And with that, we're going to bring in Wendy Lond. Wendy has been in the green room here, and Wendy has been with us since the beginning as well. Wendy, welcome.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I feel like you all said it, Chris and Dave, like so much. Robbie, it's great to see you. I'm super excited to be one of the originals, and look at me basking in the sun after she took part of the day off post eclipse.
Wendy, we're talking
It's
your
great to
language
see
here
you.
too. We're talking your language around wellness, well-being. I love the name of your company, Wealth Management. It's WELL as in wellness. And your experience teaching paramedics for over 20 years?
25, yeah.
25 years teaching paramedic students really is incredible. And I remember we first connected because I read your story, your peer-reviewed journal article, The Mindful Medic, and was really moved by your passion for studying the research behind mindfulness practices and how paramedics can best leverage that. And you've been with us every year since, and I so appreciate you for that.
Thank you. It's so nice just to listen in the backstage, because the conversation has changed. So I finished this master's in mindfulness in 2017, pretty new. Not that I'm smart, it just I got ahead of sort of the curve. And then, when I first presented at a conference about 10 years ago, nobody was saying the word mindfulness, let alone mental health, and attaching it to the first responder community. And now it's just part of the vernacular that you hear, right? At every conference I've been to, and just listening into everybody, it's like fills my soul, because there were moments 10, 12 years ago, I was like, I don't know if I've got what it takes to change the conversation. But thanks to you and Lisa, like, we are making a difference. And for the capacity to come in, and here's 2 things I've noticed about your summit that I would encourage everybody listening in. More and more, I'm saying you need to come to the summit if you're not a first responder, if you're on the collateral end of helping a first responder, if you're in the allied health and you're a physiotherapist, an occupational therapist. Up here in Canada with occupational stress injuries, OTs are often involved in the return to work, and they're phenomenal, but few people know about them. And vice versa. Many of the allied healths, including psychotherapists, don't know enough about the cultural competency it takes to be a first responder. And so listening in, into the summit, if you're not a first responder or even a loved one, I think matters, because you'll pick up such wisdom just listening to your conversation now. There's a bucket load of stuff for anybody. So please encourage those who are not technically a leader or a leader in the first responder community, but anybody that touches a first responder, I think would benefit. And secondly, like, now that I'm an OG, I feel like I have the stripes to say this now. It's important, how do I say this politically? And we talked about this, Lisa and I, in my discussion. It's important to make sure you understand who the leaders are when we talk about things like mental well-being of first responders. And I want to talk more about spiritual well-being, because we immediately think of religious, but that's not what it is. You've got to know who the leaders are, because, listen, but for sure, the first responder community and their mental well-being is exploding from a business perspective, which on some respects is really great. The warning I would give to that is you want to be careful, because I've often talked for years about mindfulness, right? You hear the word mindfulness and people are like, oh yeah, just meditate your way through a bad call. Bullshit. You need to understand that you have to have a window of tolerance. You need a mentor. You talked about that. You need to know what the experts are saying about these topics so that you don't get into McLeadership, into the people that are capitalizing on quick fixes to big processes, right? Leadership is not a strategy. It's a process. It's ultimately an inward journey. So anyway, I could have a TED talk just on that. But
I would go to it.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
But yeah, be careful. But I think you'll find the originals and some of the best leaders here that are in it for many of the right reasons. I see lots of people now jumping on the first wagon, because in Canada, for example, many first responders now have access to $10,000 in psychotherapy. They don't have access to $10 for coaching proactively, but that is driving, therapists who are coming out saying we're trauma sensitive. And I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, oh, I worked in Bosnia. I'm like, that's not the same thing.
That's right.
It's different when you put on a uniform and you vocationally sign up to engage trauma and human suffering chronically, not just in a once moment. So you want to make sure you know who the originals are and the leaders who've done the work, or get inspired by us to go do the work and reach out. So that's what I hope I bring this year for you.
You're always an inspiration, Wendy, and I love listening to you because, this is an area when we start to think about mental wellness. This is an area that we've really shot ourselves in the foot with the if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen mentality.
Yeah, right.
And now we're starting to see with people who are really passionate about it, such as yourself. Now we're starting to see a shift to say, you know what, maybe it's okay that I focus on my mental wellness. And, it's through the efforts that you've been doing for so long that everybody can finally take a breath and say, you know what, I may be normal here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And actually, I am normal. I'm actually very, very normal. And Wendy, I think something that you said a couple of years ago is sticking with me because I keep repeating it. And as you're talking, I go, I think Wendy's the one who said this, that we're only able to give to others out of what we have extra, basically. You can't give something that you do not have. You can't, if you're so focused on taking care of, again, running that call, taking care of that sick person, it's just like people in healthcare. It's the same, and I actually do describe this as pre-hospital healthcare, but it's the same mentality. I have to take care of all these people, but you're stressed, you are exhausted, you have had a traumatic situation that yourself just recently, and it's as if you have to push that aside. No, don't push it aside. Deal with it. It needs to be addressed. It's not that you cannot continue, but we can't just act like these things aren't happening, go out and take care of the next person because we're carrying that negative thought, that that thing going on in our head. We take that to the next person and we're not giving them our absolute best because we didn't spend enough time just understanding what this was for me, just understanding that that really didn't feel good at all. And I'm not sure I'm ready to go out and do the next one. I know I did the other 10, but this one is different. There's something going on that I need to take me out of the game, coach. Don't put me in. And just to be able to say that is something that is, I think it's still relatively new. And I think a lot of organizations are struggling to try to make it okay to not be okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think there's still such a culture that of ego, as Chris said earlier, and also that, toughness, right? Like, and not having space for, sometimes you just got to tap out, and that's what you should do. That's the strong thing to do,
Right.
is to know your limitations and to be able to call it for yourself, and that there's no judgment. There shouldn't be any judgment around that. Like that's an act of being a good team member. Because if you and I, David, are out on a call and I'm not my best,
Right.
I'm putting you at risk.
Right.
And
You are.
that's not right.
That's right.
And and that's what I think people sometimes innocently lose sight of, is that if we don't take care of ourselves, we're putting everybody at risk. And that's I think a true act of heroism is to put yourself first and being willing to say, I need something. I need to take care of myself.
Now, on the flip side of this conversation, as gratified as I am to be an OG, I do recognize that I actually read something recently that Gen Z in 2024 there will be more of them than there are baby boomers, because the baby boomers are leaving, and they get this already. They're walking in the door going like, yeah, no, that doesn't feel right. I know you've been around forever and I know you've been talking, but that doesn't seem right to me. That's not striking me well. And I don't think I'm going to do that. And you're probably not going to make me either. So we need to come up with a different way of approaching that if you expect me to contribute to this conversation. So it's important to have this kind of well-rounded approach that says it needs to be grounded in fact and reality and research on the one hand, but it's also got to land with the person that we're trying to share this information with. It's got to make sense to them as well. Both are really, really important if we're going to be effective.
But I think one of the big challenges here is that how do you do that? Right? You need to develop a blueprint to do that. You just can't wait for opportunity to knock on the door and say, here's the answers. You guys, the answers are here. You've got to be able to find the opportunities. You've got to create a vision of what you see for yourself, where you're going, and then what you're going to look like when you get there. And then you've got to develop the goals to reach the vision, and then the plans to reach the goals, which is one of the biggest misses, right? We'll develop a goal. I want to get in shape. But how do you do that, right? I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to eat 1,200 calories a day. I'm going to drink 100 ounces of water. And then mental wellness, right? I'm going to reflect. I'm going to journal. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to use mindfulness to be in the moment. But that's what people miss, right? So we're giving them tools, and they say that knowledge is power. I'm going to tell you it's not. Knowledge isn't power if you don't use it. And a lot of times people don't use it, but have a vision, set goals to reach the vision, plans to reach the goals, and start on this journey every day. And don't let it end till you get to wherever you want to be, and then develop another vision when you start. That's another comfort zone we got to get out of.
Yeah.
David, I love everything you were saying too about people's experiences. And one of our speakers, Molly McCain-Pino, from the Northwell Health System. Here's a system in New York City with 1,000 paramedics running calls, and one of the busiest systems in New York City, where they've invested in research on EMS providers, and not only just quantitative research, but qualitative interviews in their experiences. And I love what Molly's presentation, which we featured in the Northwell Health booth. And we're going to make it available for free the entire week, because this is such an important topic. We want to help elevate the voices of women in EMS. And here Molly is talking about what are the experiences of pregnant female paramedics and EMTs. And she actually published a research study here talking about their experience and how they felt like they were denied the proper facilities that are required to them by law, but they felt like there was no accommodations.
Right.
And so such a great presentation here to talk about Molly, that Dr. McCain-Pino talks about the experiences of people that are in our system. And folks, with nearly a high of 38% turnover rate for some agencies in the US, we need to do something differently. And if we're not going to adapt, they're going to be out the door, and we're going to be left struggling to fill that schedule, and not just talking about the direct costs of turnover. We're talking indirect costs of burning out our mid-level managers, supervisors, and leaders that are just going to be stretched so thin because they're trying to hold the ship together. So it's this downward cycle. And I love that almost every session at the summit, we've woven a through line of flourishing together, because it really is possible if that's the future vision that we want to create, and not be stuck in this past-based experience of this is the way we've always done it. And guess what? COVID just magnified all the cracks in the system. And that's how we ended up with agencies with nearly 40% turnover in a year. It's staggering. We are just pouring money and resources and people that are leaving and going out the door. If we're not willing to change ourselves, and every result that we have is a result of the structures that are in place in our system, which is great news, because we can go change those structures. We have the power, whether you think you're in a leadership position or not. As Chris said earlier, you have the power to influence. And I hope people will embrace that idea that it really can be different.
And Wendy, to a point that you made, we need to be encouraging people, not just paramedics and EMTs, but elected and appointed officials as well. Because every community on this planet that provides pre-hospital health care, every community is supposedly providing it to support the community itself. And what a lot of them end up doing is they short it for all kinds of reasons. And then they wonder, why is this working? Why is this not working? It's because you invested a lot in the trucks and not a whole lot in the environment that the people are in. So having a nice shiny ambulance with all the latest stuff on it and not providing training, not providing support for the human beings probably won't get you very far. And, if that culture isn't changed, you're simply having a nice new unit for a 40% turnover. So it's still costing you more. This is where you're really going to make the difference, is making sure that leaders have the kinds of support systems that they need to be able to go out and lead and lead, encourage and and not feel so burned out and weakened themselves. So that's the opportunity that people have. And again, you can send folks to this opportunity for nothing, and you can invest just a little bit more and have it available to you all the time. So it's really quite a deal. I have to tell you, it's quite a deal.
Thank you, David. We think so too.
Folks, if you
And I
haven't
think
already gotten that free pass, emsleadershipsummit.com, and you can claim your free pass. Visit our exhibitor hall, emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit. And at the end of this session, we're going to take a few minutes to go through all the different resources we've made available. And that is how you view the free sessions throughout the week as well. Lisa.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Reading my mind.
Well, beautiful. I love when we're in the same the wavelength here. And I guess some final thoughts from our panelists that joined us for this kickoff. We so appreciate you, your energy, your effort, and coming back every year to be with us and to really spread your message of hope for the industry. So I guess, Chris, if you want to kick it off here with some final thoughts.
I think the first thing we need to do is develop an OG tattoo, right? Next year we come back, we're all sporting the OG tattoo. But, this is a great opportunity. It's a great free event. And, you get to listen to some of the great speakers in our career field. And, a few of them that were just here on the screen, and Ray Bereshansky and Mick Gunderson. These are the leaders of EMS who are really trying to make a difference. And for you to kind of learn from them and take their words and kind of use them. And I want to just give you just a little bit of advice before I let my peers share a little bit what they think, is that write down some of these key tips that you get from everybody's classes. And then later, when they're over, take some time to reflect and say, how can I use this tidbit of knowledge in my everyday practice, in my responsibilities? It takes a little bit of time to do that. Knowledge isn't power unless you use it. But I'm excited to be here, and I'd love to hear what the doc has to say, what Wendy has to say, what your final thoughts are.
Chris, thank you for that. And we'll go to David Daniels, Dr. Daniels.
Well, I'm just really honored to be here. I have to be honest. I'm honored to have the opportunity to hang out with you all again. Again, it does feel like a bit of a family reunion to come back and see familiar faces and be able to have a familiar conversation. And that familiar conversation being about how important leadership in everything is, but particularly in EMS. As I've shared a couple of times, I stumbled into EMS a couple of years out of high school with, in what again, I'm going to be a homer here for a second, what I believe to be the best EMS system in the world in Seattle-King County. But there are still some things that system didn't teach me because it didn't have it at the time. We weren't having a conversation about mental health and about stress and about the emotional mental aspect of the job. That just was great paramedics. I mean, again, best in the world, training folks from all over the world, but that just wasn't a conversation that was being had at the time. And we certainly weren't doing things virtually. That just wasn't a conversation at the time. So we have the opportunity now through this forum, through this gathering of people, to do some things that have not been done before, to do some things that are built on some great success, but can create great new success as well. And, in addition to the fact that there have been some of us who've been here since the beginning, I'm always excited to see the new voices that show up every year. People, again, that I'd never heard of before, that bring things I just never heard of. And I think as we continue to grow the summit and grow the voices that are able to share their gifts and talents, we really are making a difference in the pre-hospital care world. And, it's probably spilling over to the rest of the world as well. So again, thanks, Robbie and Lisa, for your vision and for the opportunity to be able to participate.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Chris. We're gonna bring Wendy up here in just a moment, but thank you for being here. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing your sessions here, Dr. Daniels and Chris Cebollero. Thanks for being here. Wendy, thanks.
The last word.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a big believer as an academic that education promotes regulation. And when we think of, I think all vocations globally where we are in this world, everybody's struggling to some degree or another. This vocation of EMS, more than most because of the proximity to the pandemic, you need to sign up. And if you're not, reflect on if you're bitching and complaining about what's going on in the culture and you do nothing about it, aren't you part of the problem, right? If you feel like, "Oh, I don't want to spend $40 or for free, or I don't have time." I call bullshit on that every time I teach anybody, because the research, the evidence suggests we are on our phone looking down for 21 years of our life. So when people say, "I don't have time," and I'm like, "Do you have a smartphone and do you have social media apps?" Then the truth is you do have the time to do this. And so commit to change, because if nothing changes, we change nothing. And we will be perpetually talking about this. So we need you, the participant, to be here to listen to this and then take what we do, make it your own, reflect, and let it inspire you to do something different locally. I mean, we're here globally, but we hope that we change things locally.
I love that.
That's great, Wendy. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
for-
you for all you do. And thank
Yeah.
you for joining us again this year. We just so grateful, so very grateful.
And I am going to keep Wendy on for just a moment while we bring up our virtual exhibitor booth, our hall here in just a moment. So we can actually go through and there we go.
Show off Wendy's booth.
Yeah. So we, folks, emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit. Exhibit booth 14 here. If you click on it, Wendy Lond, you've got some introductions to Wendy's work, as well as a few articles that she wrote. And you can connect with Wendy here.
Pop back up there. I got a lot of mileage out of this tweet, and this is why you want to, everybody teaching a first responder how to manage a difficult airway saves a patient's life. Now let's teach them how to manage a difficult emotion, and we'll save theirs.
Oof.
Hashtag.
Beautiful. Well said. Well said. Thank you, Wendy, for your resources and allowing us to feature your work here. Folks, this exhibitor booth this year, I'm really excited about. We have an entire corner for research. I brought it up briefly before, but the Northwell Health Center for EMS and Molly McCain-Pino's research into the experiences of paramedics has been just fantastic. Every article here is open access and you can download without having to hit a paywall. In this entire week, we want to elevate the voices of women in EMS, and Molly really brings it home and talks about some powerful stories here. So I'd encourage you to check out all the different research that the Northwell Center for EMS has been doing. And I think my conversation with Molly was that, these are the tools that we can use to advocate for more funding. We have reasons behind it, not just our thoughts about why we think it might work, but here's what the evidence shows as far as why this can work. Here's what the evidence shows about these are people's experiences, both quantitative and qualitative experiences. So really excited to have a research corner in our virtual exhibit hall.
Congratulations to you both. Honestly, it's been just a pleasure for me to watch you two grow this. Pretty impressive.
And I am excited as we talk about advocacy, this Honorable but Broken EMS in Crisis film. I took a train down to New York City and watched the in-person premiere. I was so excited to finally get a chance to see it. Had to drive hours. It was not cheap to get down there. And we are bringing that to everyone at the EMS Leadership Summit. If you've got an all access pass, you've got 2 opportunities to view that. If you want to just purchase your ticket, we've got it as a $15 donation to the nonprofit that's supporting this film. And I think it's a great opportunity for those that haven't been able to make a local showing. You'll be able to watch it streaming this week.
And we're going to have the producers here to answer some questions after the showing.
Yes.
And so it'll be Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, April 11th, and then Saturday evening, April 13th at 7:30 p.m.
Absolutely. Wendy, I don't want to keep you here, but I did want to just have you here as we showed off your booth with wealth management and the work that you've been doing for paramedics across Canada, North America, in your work. So thank you again for being here with us to celebrate this kickoff event and for all your work.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me. And I think I'll see you Friday night, I think, for a debrief.
Yeah, we have you on Friday. Can't wait to see you.
Okay, good luck, everybody. Sign up.
Bye.
Come and see me Friday.
Thanks, Wendy. Folks, I would also like to show off one booth that was called the Binderlift booth, but now they've evolved to Phase, and it's patient handling and safety experts. We know Rick Bender, him and his family for years, and I believe rural Pennsylvania started in EMS and actually developed this device to help put handles on humans and actually safely lift them with the chance of reducing provider injury and patient injury. And just think about it. Nobody wants to put their, nobody wants to lift from underneath somebody's armpits. And the fact that we were doing this for so many years and never really questioning it just boggles my mind. And Rick has put together, his team has put together, his company, this entire training, a free course that you can click on, and you can, they've recorded some really high quality modules for safe patient handling and lifting. And it's not promoting their product. During the training, they do talk a little bit about the Bender lift, but they talk primarily about the mechanics of lifting and moving. They even focus on other devices that they're now a rep for, the Manger Elk lifting cushion. This lifts up to 1,000 pounds, and you can slide this under a patient with this battery powered device, and each baffle will inflate and actually lift the patient up for you. So with your assistance of just stabilizing that patient, having this machine lift them up, and it's so much more comfortable for the patient, so much more comfortable for the provider. We're really excited to feature all of the innovations that the Phase company and Rick Bender has done over the years. And the director of sales, Jimmy Gilly, has been fantastic. You can reach out to him there.
And we really want to highlight Ninth Brain, also another returning sponsor. What a great product, a suite of products they have to really help people in EMS to save time, streamline solutions. And you can sign up here for a free
Connection with Bradley.
connection and consultation to learn more about what they do. But if you ever have the thought, I need more time, or I don't have enough bandwidth to do all this, you really want to check out and see what they offer, because they have incredibly simplified solutions for EMS leaders to deal with some of the most complex.
Yep. Just going to say, from workforce scheduling to learning management systems to your employee health files, a centralized source, an ERP tool, an enterprise resource planning tool, credential management, risk assessments, especially if you're in the flight industry, you want to have safety profiles and risk assessments. Ninth Brain has been catering to the EMS world for many, many years. And really their product has evolved over the years. And I had a chance to meet Bradley last month and connect with him in person, but he is more than happy to connect with anyone and show them through the Ninth Brain suite. And we appreciate their support here and making this summit possible.
And then let's go to Wayfound. They're beyond operational stress. They were a sponsor in 2022, and they had a drawing, and it was quite popular. And so this year they have another grand prize drawing. So it's free to enter. You just go and fill out the little sheet there. There's also some pretty terrific information, and they've done quite a bit of research too, right? This is part of the research corner.
Yeah. I loved, and Dr. Megan McClary recorded a session for us at the summit and talked about, I know Wendy mentioned McMindfulness. It was brought up, the idea of stoicism, and this idea that you should be, people have this misinterpretation that you should be tough and you should just handle it. And that wasn't the ancient Stoic philosophy. It just got kind of evolved into this idea of compartmentalizing. And as a clinical psychologist, and her research really dove into helping first responders deal with operational stress and give them the tools before they were exposed to the stress, as opposed to being constantly responding to the PTSD and the post-traumatic stress injuries that were happening with first responders. And their program is evidence-based and researched. And so there's some peer-reviewed articles here that talk about beyond operational stress, and you could watch a trailer about their training. There have been people that have taken this training coast to coast in Canada and North America, and rolled it out to their entire organization. So we really appreciate the Beyond Operational Stress team, and we're thankful that they've given us some giveaways. So definitely check this out, enter for the grand prize drawing and giveaways, and we appreciate their support.
And we'll be doing that live Saturday night on our final daily debrief. So stay tuned.
Let's bring up Scott Moore and his work, his platform that he's created as an expert in both EMS operations and his background, to his expertise as a human resource expert and attorney. He really has brought together a software platform in order to help connect both your different systems from scheduling to EPCR, join that information together and really get this he calls it Newton 360, this idea, this holistic view of your people and how many interactions your supervisors are having with their people. Are your supervisors making sure they check in with people after they had a tough call? How do you create a system? Remember, structures drive behavior and create new results. So how do you create a structure that helps as another tool to make sure that your supervisors and management team have an idea every time that a little red flag is raised, to make sure that they just had a pediatric cardiac arrest. They just did 2 or 3 cardiac arrests in a day. They had a significant trauma call where the patient ended up dying. Like, all of these tools can be set up in order to help your team engage with people in the organization and make sure that people aren't falling through the cracks. They're not being missed. And that's why we so appreciate Scott Moore and Newton 360 and the whole team here. He's put his calendar up there. So if you wanted to book a demo, he's got only a few dates available, but if you've never had a chance to talk with Scott, he is such an incredible leader in our industry, and really thankful that he and his company have been featured here.
Yeah, and he'll be here Friday. He's presenting Friday on our schedule, and he'll be back. He'll be at the daily debrief on Friday. Should we go over the schedule for tomorrow before we end? Maybe we can also show the playbook, which I think you have done a beautiful job on that playbook, Robbie. You really, really nailed it.
Thank you. Yeah, let me just share this here. So
it's our 5th edition of, right? Is it our 5th? Did we do one the first year?
No, well, no. But,
I don't think that's right. I'm
there's
sorry, I misspoke.
versions. So every time we update this playbook, you'll have the live and latest version at emsleadershipsummit.com/playbook. So I'm going to share a version of here we go. So page 11 of our playbook. Again, we could scroll through this whole thing, but you'll see here we have a lot of resources, articles that you can read through, information on the movie premiere, the film premiere this week, an interview with the directors. And if we scroll to page 11 here. So day 1 will be on the 9th, starting tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. As a special bonus we released, anybody can access the Molly McCain-Pino session about EMS research and elevating the voices of women in EMS. Her presentation will make available right now at the exhibitor hall. So emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit, click on the Northwell Health booth. But tomorrow you're going to come through and click on booth number 1, which is our exhibit hall. If you paid to be an all access pass holder, you can click on the red button that says all access pass holder. And if you're a free pass holder, you'll have 24 hours to watch all the sessions that are due to premiere tomorrow. Starting out with retired Chief Lillian Bonsignor, the FDNY EMS Chief of Operations for the one of the busiest systems in North America, in New York City, leading over 4,500 providers in working for New York City Fire Department. And she talks about leading a distributed workforce, she says, leading the invisible. These people are not really seen on a daily basis unless there's an emergency, and talks about how do you create a more resilient workforce. And she shares the challenges that their system has faced. And she had over 31 years in that system. And she was promoted to the chief position just before the pandemic hit. So she shares a bit about her story, her passions, and really does some reflection now that she has retired from that system. So we really thank the chief for kicking us off with tomorrow on day one, and as well as Jonathan Washko from Northwell Health. Jonathan's sat on the NEMSAC and National EMS Advisory Council, as well as other appointed positions. And he has worked as a consultant, and he is really just a wealth of knowledge, talking about his decades of experience in the symptoms of why EMS systems are failing. What are the metrics that you want to track, and how do we stop it? How do we prevent that from happening? So appreciate Jonathan recording. Really, I think he said that's usually a half a day class that he boils down into an hour session. It is jam packed. I know I took a lot of notes during that session. And then we have Scott Moore. Scott has been with us every year, and
No, he's not tomorrow.
Okay, well, that's outdated. Great.
I'm sorry. Tuesday is not.
Well, in any event,
Oh, he is still on there. I'm sorry.
We will get this updated, and we will make sure that that you see it. You're correct. So, David Daniels today talked about psychological health and safety. We love David's research and his background in fire and EMS and physical safety, and also talks about the often overlooked psychological safety in the environment that we're creating. And so appreciate David for his work and being with us.
Yeah, I got a lot out of that. I got to interview him for that presentation, and it was powerful. I learned a lot. I'm so grateful for him to come back.
And every time I listen to him talk about psychological safety, it takes it another level deeper. He just brings another level of experience to it. I remember I took his psychosocial hazard assessment, over 100 questions, and I'd be going through the questions, and it was from not how often are you exposed to this situation, never, not often, frequently, very frequently. Almost every time I felt like I was circling the frequently exposed to answers, because he put so much language to things that I didn't even know were happening in the background. Asbel Montez from the Solutions Group. Love hearing Asbel talk. Usually his message is very uplifting and talking about the importance of creating leadership and under pressure, really. And Asbel has put a session together for day one tomorrow. And Lisa, do you want to talk about Dr. Bill Pettit?
I do. Dr. Bill Pettit has been a mentor of mine. He is a psychiatrist who really has a whole nother approach to mental wellness, and not your average psychiatrist. He doesn't come from a place of there's something wrong with you mentally and you need to be fixed. He actually comes from the space of we're already well, that we are a fountain of well-being, and we have a lot of thinking that gets in the way, and that thinking causes and wreaks havoc, and we're not really taught how to relate to our thinking. So he shares some amazing stories of people he's worked with, one of whom was 40 years in a mental institution, and after 2 sessions with him had a total transformation. And his title is Compassion Can Be Energizing, because he wants to really highlight that this compassion fatigue that people talk about, burning out, that doesn't have to be the case. That when you have a new understanding about how to relate to your own thinking and how to understand what's happening, that it can actually be energizing to work with people who who are in crisis, who are needing help, that it doesn't have to be a road to burnout or compassion fatigue. And I am so thrilled that he agreed to be a part of the summit. You have no idea. When he said yes, I was almost in tears because he, full disclosure, he helped my husband and I during a really difficult time when my husband was recovering from his brain bleed. And he was just so helpful to us. And so when I told him what I was up to with you, he said, Absolutely, I'd love to be a part of it." So, and his daughter is
A paramedic.
was a paramedic.
Right, right.
She's not active right now, but she was a paramedic for many years. So he had uh, a lot of heart in this too, because obviously it's his daughter.
It's always great to hear, especially a medical doctor, a physician talking from that perspective as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All too often, I feel like the physicians in our profession, it's so steeped in we have to master the clinical expert, like the clinical realm, and we often miss the emotional, the social realm, the leadership aspect, and so yeah, I'm really excited to have Dr. Pettit talk from that perspective as well.
Yeah.
And so, folks,
So
that's the lineup for day one, and we are excited about that. You've got an additional bonus session, which is available now. Check out our virtual exhibitor hall, and we'll have the entire lineup in the playbook at emsleadershipsummit.com/playbook. You'll be able to see all the sessions available on day two. And remember, these are available at 8 a.m. Eastern. So whatever your time zone, you'll have 24 hours to watch day one session before they close out. If you'd like lifetime access to all the sessions, as well as the bonuses, the live stream premiere of Honorable But Broken, EMS in Crisis this week, both opportunities, you can get an all access pass for less than $97. And after the summit, when it's over, that price will go up to $397. So be sure to get your pass now. You'll all access pass holders also get 24 hours of NEMSMA approved CME credits. So if you are interested in pursuing certification, NEMSMA has 3 levels of certification: supervising paramedic officer, managing paramedic officer, and the fellow of the American College of Paramedic Executives. And those credits can apply towards that certification. So definitely check out the NEMSMA booth and get your all access pass if you're thinking that you want to apply for you want these credits. And folks, if you're going to get the credits, definitely get your all access pass sooner, because you need to use our platform, special platform, in order to claim those credits. So we want to make sure you watch the sessions through our all access pass login, this red button here in the exhibitor hall, and not just the free sessions. But this is where you're going to come every day of the summit here to be able to watch all of the sessions that we've put together.
And just so you know, all access pass holders, there are sessions already available, so you don't have to wait till tomorrow morning. They are up and raring to go, and we have been getting comments all day long
Feedback has
from
been
people
exciting.
who are,
Yep.
yeah, people are saying, "Wow, I can't believe that that I get access to all this for this amount of money. This is crazy good." So, if you are an all access pass holder, you can start watching things right now.
Just a few other booths. We've got the National Association of Mobile Integrated Health Professional Providers, NAMI HP. And we put a booth together here. This is a recent interview with Dr. Victoria Reinhartz, who's the interim executive director, interviewing with GEMS magazine, as well as some resources on what their very low cost membership is for individuals and agencies. This is a cutting edge association for some of the most cutting edge leaders that are looking to do innovative things in our industry with community paramedicine. So really excited. I had a chance to attend their in-person MIH Summit, and their next one, we've already put a link up here, is coming up in Las Vegas this fall. So we've got an entire booth. Connect with Victoria on LinkedIn. She's fantastic. Really appreciate NAMI HP for their partnership in supporting the EMS Leadership Summit.
I think the other one I don't think we talked about was camps. Did
Yes,
we
you're
talk about that?
correct. The Commission on Accreditation of Medical Transport Systems has been putting out accreditation standards for both ground, rotor, fixed wing services, as well as the recent MIH, Mobile Integrated Health Standards. The first edition of the standards were premiered at our last summit. And I just had a call today, are actually wanting comments from people that have read the MIH standards, and in their next iteration of standards, their second edition of standards, they want people's feedback. So if you have a community paramedicine program, this is a must read. They're freely available on the CAMS website. So Victoria Reinhardt is a board member. Dudley Smith has is their, I believe, executive director, and has been fantastic in allowing us to feature the work of accreditation and the power it can bring to creating standards within your organization. So be sure to check out the CAMS booth.
I think we covered them all. Maybe not the citizens resuscitation.
We've got our Citizen CPR Foundation Resuscitation Academy. So if you at all are interested in improving cardiac arrest survivability in your community, I love this panel, from Ann Dahl to Tom Ray, Jim Souza, and David Hiltz. His passion. These two fantastic organizations came together with different resources, the 10 steps to improve sudden cardiac arrest survivability, strategies that both organizations have been implementing, from telephone initiated CPR, TCPR guidelines to other ways of improving resuscitation and strengthening the chain of survival. So I so appreciate both of those organizations coming together. And last but not least, we've got Responder Safety, ERSI, the respondersafety.com. If you have a service that operates on roadways, every person in your organization should be taking a traffic incident management TIM training. That allows them to operate safely on roads, become more aware of road hazards, as well as certain language vernacular to use when responding to roadside incidents. They've put together an entire landing page at respondersafety.com/EMS for our EMS Leadership Summit. This is a comprehensive list of resources. If you're in a leadership position, here are all the standards. If you are in a supervisor, shift commander position, here are all the resources. If you're a training supervisor, more resources, safety officer resources. They have access to a national TIM training certificate, again, traffic incident management certificate. I think it's important that we as leaders promote safety and we reduce the chance of somebody getting struck by a vehicle on the road. They have been tracking struck by incidents of first responders for years. And go to their website if you know of any responders that are unfortunately do get struck by a vehicle. And that number has hovered around 40 to 50 every year. So we thank the Emergency Responder Safety Institute for putting these resources together and featuring them.
Yeah, we really encourage people to just tool around the exhibit hall and just see what's available. There's free information, there's extra videos in there, ways to connect with some of our sponsors and even some of the presenters. So definitely want to, just like you were at a in-person conference, right? You walk around, you check out the booths. Please, please, please do that. Our sponsors are why we can offer this for free, this summit, and plus they are great resources for people in EMS.
Well, Lisa, that does it, I think, for our kickoff. I was excited to have our great speakers join us, some of our original folks that were early adopters that have been with us at every session. We're excited for more people. It's not too late. You can register at emsleadershipsummit.com and go to emsleadershipsummit.com/playbook in order to download the full conference schedule. You get your free ticket, and you have the option to upgrade to an all-access pass, which gives you lifetime access to all these sessions, as well as additional bonuses and CME credit.
Absolutely. And don't forget about our movie. We'll be talking about that a lot. It was the first time for us, and it's such an honor to be the first live streaming of this amazing documentary. I can't wait. Can't wait.
All right, folks, that does it for us tonight. Join us every day for the next 5 days for our daily debrief. And we will see you starting tomorrow at 8 a.m. for all of the speaker sessions. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.